Okay, so as a lecturer and tutor in the philosophy department, most of my classes are face-to-face classes, internal classes, but I also have external students with whom my only contact is through their online learning, and I've also done work for OUA, the Open Universities Australia offerings, which are also purely online. Okay, a well-written unit guide is a really important thing because what it does is give the students an explicit outline of what's expected, what's needed up front. So it's really important for the purposes of accessibility, precisely because if we're able to make things like inherent requirements, which are the non-negotiable requirements of a course, if we can make those explicit in a unit guide up front, students are able to select courses on the basis of what they'll be able to do rather than discovering post facto that it'll become a problem.
Some students are studying face-to-face, some students would be studying off campus and online, and some students would be in a blended learning situation where part of the time they're in a face-to-face environment and part of the time they're studying online. Some of these students might be hearing impaired, some of these students might be vision impaired, some of the students might be suffer from dyslexia, some students might have a learning difficulty or could have another physical disability.
So if you're approachable, it makes it much easier for the students to feel comfortable to come and speak to you, to confide in you, and that makes it much easier for you to support them in the right ways.
A lot of people are studying by distance because they aren't able to attend the campus, and there's a mixture of reasons. Sometimes it's because their work and family commitments mean they can't attend campus during the day, but sometimes it's because they have physical disabilities that preclude them coming to the campus and attending lectures and tutorials. And so COE and my team have a big role in supporting those students and supporting the academics who support the students.
And so having students with a mental health issue in my classes has been an interesting learning experience in terms of how best to support them. One of the most important things about supporting students with a mental health problem is that flexibility becomes key. I've also had a deaf student in one of my classes, which was again a very interesting experience because his support was provided through the Disability Support Unit, and they provided him with a note taker who was not actually a member of the class, and with interpreters.
For example, if you have a deaf student or someone with a print disability who's studying externally or online, all their materials delivered in a format that they can't access. That's where we're looking to different ways of giving them access to their material.
I mean, the most important units in terms of support for staff who are helping students with disabilities are the Disability Support Unit and MCAS. So the Disability Support Unit is part of Campus Wellbeing. They're located in the Lincoln Building, and students, in order to get support, must declare their disability. The Disability Support Unit then refers those students to MCAS, and MCAS then, in liaising with the student, determines what the correct supports would be, what sorts of things we can do to help, what formats would be helpful to them. MCAS also assists lecturers as well directly in terms of attempting to assist in looking at courses and saying, well, yes, this is accessible, or no, it's not, or if you've got, if lecturers have a concern about whether a particular piece of content that they want to use in their course, particularly for online courses.
In an online situation, hearing impaired people can be supported by having all their video content captioned, all their audio content transcribed. That is, means that anything in an audio format they get into a text format.
So one of the things that we suggest in terms of making your content accessible is that 90% of what you're doing is probably going to start out as a Word document anyway at some point. And so even if you then thereafter convert it into a PDF or into a PowerPoint presentation, if you can keep that Word document, that way if a student needs it in an accessible format, you can either provide that to the student directly or it can be provided to MCAS, who can then use it to generate the other accessible formats that the student might need. So it makes it easier for everybody if you've got those copies just backed up and ready to go.
It's always good to offer a range of formats of content. For example, if you're offering a text document, the most accessible text document is an HTML page because a screen reader can read that. You don't need any special skills anymore, coding skills, to write HTML. It's just a matter of word processing skills. The other type of format that you might like to use is a PDF, an accessible PDF, which again can be read by a screen reader.
Okay, so when I'm talking about an accessible course, what I mean is a course, the materials for which can be accessed in a number of different formats, and most importantly that they can be accessed by what we call assistive technologies.
Well, some of the technologies are DAISY formatted text, which is read with a DAISY reader. DAISY is a way of formatting text so a person with a vision impairment or with dyslexia can listen to the text being read out to them.
Exhalations. That also gave rise to earthquakes.
We have a ZoomX camera which scans any text and then reads it straight back to the listener.
Services is a professional development opportunity for both.
The chance to design your curriculum, keeping in mind inclusive practice, it's a great opportunity to think through the way you present learning materials and the way you present learning strategies for your students.
One of the great things about switching to Moodle is that Moodle is an accessible learning management system. So it's a really great opportunity for us to ensure that things are accessible across the board.
If you're designing something that is dominantly visual, think about how can that be also accessed for someone who is visually impaired and could be in a sort of auditory format.
So if we make courses with accessible materials that are also socially inclusive, that's really good for everybody rather than just being something that we should do specially for students with disabilities.